Hello everyone and welcome to Celebrating Cinema. I'm your host Elliot. If you haven't already, please make sure to leave a review and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to us on. It really helps us out a lot. On June 26, we'll be doing a special screening of Gasoline Rainbow in conjunction with our Hit the Road program, which is currently running, and you can find links to tickets in the episode description. In anticipation of this screening, I managed to catch up with the directors Bill and Turner Ross, collectively known as the Ross Brothers, who are an American independent filmmaking duo. But who are the Ross Brothers? Well, originally from Ohio, the Ross Brothers have quietly established themselves as some of the most innovative independent filmmakers working in America. With a style uniquely of their own, these two brothers resist to be put into any kind of box when it comes to filmmaking, completely reflective of the stories they tell. Their debut film, 45365, is an achingly beautiful love letter to their hometown. Often it is the landscapes and places that are the subjects and characters of their films. Their storytelling is raw, honest, and inherently poetic, dancing between fiction and documentary. But Gasoline Rainbow is their most ambitious film yet. The film follows 5 Gen Z teenagers from a small town in Oregon who set out on a classic American road trip.
Are you guys sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I see him.
Jump in now. Let me ask Nicole.
I like the van, it's pretty cool. Are you just looking for cool sights and stuff? Kinda, yeah.
Whoa, look at the fucking color of the sky over there. It looks like a Bob Ross painting, bro.
Bob Ross was 7'3", man.
You're fucking lying. You know, he's not that tall.
They're gonna have a party at this place called the End of the World at some beach or something.
It might be fun.
I guess going? Let's fucking do it. As soon as we hit that highway, boom, felt like my new beginning was coming.
However, in this unscripted narrative, we follow 5 non-actors given the freedom to play themselves authentically as possible, while on the cusp of entering into adulthood. If I'm honest, when I first read the tagline for this film, I almost rolled my eyes. I was expecting something cringeworthy, steeped in the stereotypes we perceive of Gen Z. And that is exactly why everyone should watch this film. The Ross Brothers achieved something quite remarkable, where it is the characters themselves who define this film and themselves. A totally humanizing effect that reminds us all how universal it is to have hopes and dreams, and that we might not be as disconnected from each other as we might think. Hi, Bill and Turner. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
So this is for Celebrating Cinema, and on the podcast we always like to ask, what was your first memory of film?
The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. And I didn't sleep for a week. I thought that shit was real.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that'd be up there.
Plug us into the TV instead of watching us. So we saw a lot of 80s horror films too early.
Yeah.
Gosh, so how do you think that's influenced your filmmaking, if in any way? Because obviously you've made very different films to the films you've just listed.
You know, I'd never considered if The Fog has influenced, but if I were to come up with an answer, I'd say it right off the bat proved how affecting films can be.
Yeah, there is a unique blind spot between art and life that I think we've always inhabited. Because Freddy Krueger could be real.
Yes.
I like that you say that, right? Because I guess it immediately relates to Gasoline Rainbow and this whole idea of it could be real.
Trying to line you up here.
Yeah, you're serving me right up here. Before we do dive into your film Gasoline Rainbow, I wanted to ask where the connection comes from watching films like The Fog and Nightmare on Elm Street, but also I get the impression that you guys are sort of big movie buffs. I came across your Criterion Top 10 collection, and I was happily surprised to see a lot of the same films we share as great movies. But yeah, where this connection comes from of watching such films and being able to then say to yourselves that this could be something you also can do and you're going to do it together.
I don't think we were ever that confident. I mean, in the beginning, I think we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could at least make a film with 45365, just so we could, if we did go back to our normal jobs, we could be like, well, we tried, and but
And we might be better used elsewhere.
yeah, but at least we tried. But then that film did really well, and so
and we never stopped.
we just kept doing it.
But yeah, I mean, we see inspiration all the time. We reference, I mean, not just films, but photography and writing, and it's
A lot of
kind of
music.
endless.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps you guys working together? Because I can imagine at a certain point you reach a level of confidence, but yet you're still here together making films, and I wondered why that is.
It's fun. It's the most intellectually and creative relationship I have. We collaborate with other people, and those, that can be its own thing, but it just we've been having this, these artistic conversations our entire lives, and you can't get to the place of this deep place really elsewhere.
It
So
also beats hell out of working in a factory. We grew up in a place that didn't ever have the promise of a life like this, and we've carved it out and been able to sustain it. Yeah, more than we could have hoped for.
This small town you're referring to is also similar to the small town we see in Gasoline Rainbow, and this idea of wanting to see what's beyond this world and going to explore. But I wondered where this idea came from. Obviously, it's reflective somewhat of your own narrative, I can imagine, but this idea to take this narrative of leaving the small town, but then to expand on it and play with it.
That part was something that we knew very well. We try to start a place of empathy and understanding, and that framework for us is something that we knew very well. Looking out the window at the stoplight on Main Street and imagining what would happen if you kept going down the road, being in a town with, without the opportunities that you would hope for, or the people that you wish to meet, without seeing yourself reflected in that world. And so as an impetus, that made a lot of sense for us. But we're not the only ones who have that experience. And what we wanted to do was find the version of that against the backdrop of the present day, and see what their experience was like, see what their hopes and dreams were, see how they interacted with the world once they blasted off into it.
What I really love about this film is how you really let all the parts of it breathe. And when I say that, so obviously this film is about 5 teenagers who are from Gen Z. I myself was also from Gen Z, but the older end of the spectrum. What I love is that there are no stereotypes. There's no kind of pointing of a certain direction. And so, like I said, you really let these characters define who they want to be within this film and take on a life of their own. And I don't think that's possible without the choice of form in which you tell the story. And for those that are perhaps more familiar with a traditional narrative structure, I think might be surprised. But for me, it was far more affecting. And I wondered if you could talk a bit about the decision behind that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you nailed it. It's we don't really think of it as a road trip movie or of a coming of age film. It is up. It's a construction in order for the, hopefully everyone in the film to be themselves, to relay what, is on their mind. And we cast them because we loved who they were, and we hoped that would shine through. And so it's just a vehicle in order to let these folks just be who they are.
Yeah, I mean, we would never deign to suppose that we could be spokesmen for
I don't want
generation.
I don't want to write that movie. I think that That's a bold move.
And I think it's a fallacy of, of the preceding generations to talk back to this generation and to make grand statements about what it is, where it's at, how they feel. And I feel like that's bullshit. There's something universal about that period of time that we all go through, and I think we forget about it. But to try to categorize and classify an entire fucking generation from the viewpoint of further down the line was not something that we wanted to do. We were curious, what's going on with everybody? What are people thinking? How do they interact with the world? And at least this is a small view into that.
As the story progresses, obviously you have these great landscapes that are sort of reflecting back the emotional state of the teenagers. I mean, they start narrative sort of in these very empty, expansive, barren landscapes and slowly move towards the city. But also what I liked was how along the way, and initially they start interacting with people around their own age, but gradually they're only interacting with adults by the end. But yet they all share these similar kind of struggles. And I think Micah's cousin sort of captures it best when he says that the only difference between kids and adults is that one of them are supervised and the others are not. And I think it really spoke to how, you sort of saw as they interacted with these adults, how we're all figuring our lives out, no matter where we are and what age we are. And it sort of just made me think how we're perhaps more closely connected than we like to think we are. And I wondered what you thought about that.
I really appreciate that you picked up on the landscape transitions. We don't hear that a lot, but that was definitely part of the thinking. And I'm so grateful that Milla, who says that line, and that again, that's him talking. That's his line. That's what he wanted to convey. But that line really nails so many of the themes that we would hope, that we hoped would emerge in the film.
But that's also the risk of the way that we work, to go back to your question about sort of the process and the way that we work. We cast, sort of older versions of these kids. We cast people who had gone through these experiences, who had been some iteration of that in the past and arrived at unique futures, right? And Clayton, the vegan Satanist rocker on the floating houseboat, I think really got it on screen, but off screen, he said, Turner, I feel like Tom Bombadil. Like I can't take these kids where they need to go, but I can help them along their way. I thought that was a really good thing. And of all the people that we put together, each of them had their own way of contributing to this barter system of care that helped move them. But I mean, again, they're human beings who are all meeting in this weird scenario that we've constructed, and the ways in which they interact are their own. They are the authors of their own experience. So to have that emanate from it was a real epiphany.
I can imagine it was a very special process filming this and to be a part of it. But I'm wondering, as directors, what it is you were doing to give these non-actors the confidence to play themselves in front of a camera, because especially for the teenagers, it never really felt like the presence of the camera was there. And I can imagine there's a real art to that, or it's a really hard thing to do, especially in the short amount of time that you had with them.
Well, we're not asking them to, I mean, of course it's a performance, but we're not asking them to capital P perform. There's never action or cut or take two. At the beginning of the day, we all huddle up and we talk about where we've been the day before, the night before, where we hope to get that day, sort of get back emotionally where we were the day before, where we hope to get emotionally that day. But it's never prescriptive. It's like you're sort of setting the scene for the day, but it's like whatever they decide they want to reveal or express or whatever that day, they're more than welcome to. And there's no wrong answer to anything. We're not going to, again, yell cut and say that's wrong. So once we have that conversation, once we've huddled up, we start shooting, and then we just keep shooting until the day's done. So it makes for very long days. They can always, check out, come up to us, say they need a break. We try to create a safe space for everybody.
It's up to us to create those conditions.
Yeah.
And also there's years of this behind Bill and I, but the main thing is that we try to let everybody know exactly why they're there and really embellish their uniqueness. There is no redundancy. There is no other you in this movie. You're here for a reason. And the only way that you can fuck this up is by being anybody other than yourself.
I can imagine that it's actually quite an empowering experience for them filming this, because it's very rare actually that we are given that permission and space to be ourselves as authentically as possible. And even in the film, the teenagers discuss this, how only really within a family setting or around our family can we be our true selves without any kind of expectations from the other person. And if I'm not mistaken, this whole process for you guys took about 6 weeks, the filming of it, and you were on the road with them. So in a way, you also went on your own kind of road trip. And I wondered if that changed you in any way and what that experience was like for you.
Always.
Yes.
Yeah. It's why we made it that way. And we Bill and I have gone through so many experiences like this and still do. And the making of the film is one of those. So even though there's artifice and, layers of construction, those 6 days of film time or 6 weeks of continuous work, we shot the film linearly so that when we're arriving at those moments, they're actually happening as we're moving forward, that there is an evolution of the landscape that mirrors the evolution of their emotions. So by the hypothesis being that if we go through this gauntlet together, go through all these experiences and arrive at the end, that we may have, some element of catharsis or epiphany. And so when we arrive at the end of the film and their faces are so distinctly different than they were on those ID cards at the beginning of the film, they've gone through something. And those responses to that experience are genuine. And that's also happening behind the camera. It's a journey that we hoped we could undertake. We didn't know what would happen. There were surprises along the way. We met so many people along the way. It changes who you are. And then you arrive at the end with a sense of accomplishment and also a sense of, also the question of what happens now. Always that part of it as well. It's like, well, fuck, we got where we were going, but then what?
And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think I proved to myself that I can handle just about anything.
Speaking of road movies, so in conjunction with the podcast, we also have our own cinema, and we're doing a whole program on road movies. And so I wondered, what are some of your favorite road movies? Because if I'm not mistaken, I can see behind you an Easy Rider bike helmet with the American flag on it.
Oh yeah, they actually use that.
All the aerial shots, we just strapped me to the top of the RV, but I wore a helmet for safety.
Yeah.
But
Tuki Buki,
Paris, Texas, the Muppet movie, big one. Kings of the Road, My Own Private Idaho. It's a long list.
What is it about road movies that you guys enjoy?
Well, I mean, we like traveling. We travel a ton. One thing that we've never brought up, but we enjoyed so much, was that Ewan McGregor bike.
Long Way Round.
Yeah, that show was great.
Or Ring of Fire.
Oh, Ring of Fire is also. We never mentioned that either. That's a good one too.
2-Lane Blacktop.
Yeah.
So many. Yeah.
You know what movie isn't that great? Easy Rider.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that great. And until Jack Nicholson shows up And then for the stretch that he's there, it's fantastic. But otherwise, not great.
It hadn't been made before, and it has cultural significance. But watching it from the present day, I mean, it's largely a big music video.
It's montage,
Yeah.
montage, and then Jack Nicholson shows up, and it's like, oh, this guy's undeniable. This is great. But then once he gets killed off, you're just kind of like,
Very nice to look at.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
I think Les Blank got fired from that movie.
Down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Probably partying too much.
I wonder how this film, Gasoline Rainbow, might change looking back in the future, because obviously a very hard thing to tell, but this film was made in 2021, so still during the COVID pandemic. And as I think of myself, of who I was then as opposed to who I am now, this film takes on a very different kind of meaning, because one thing I still couldn't quite decide is whether, watching this film, is whether America is as fragmented and fractured as I think it is, or there's a certain level of connection we're overlooking, because in this film you see a lot of different subcultures and individuals, people we wouldn't necessarily expect to connect with one another, and yet they're still finding a way to, in ways that we have been told is no longer possible in society.
Well, 1969 was also a tumultuous time, and that showed up in its own way in Easy Rider. I hope, so we have a screening series here in New Orleans where a bunch of different filmmakers present films. And last night, and we're about to show Gasoline Rainbow for the first time here at home in New Orleans. And in the lead up, we showed Stand By Me. Stand By Me was greatly affected for us as kids in the 80s, but it's also a period piece from 1959, made in 1986, that my 11-year-old daughter just watched last week and found resonant and relevant. So the movies stay the same, but I hope they still remain resonant and relevant over time. Can't really, we're just putting this out right now, but I will love to look back on it 10, 20 years from now.
I think it really speaks to the power of this film that anybody from any kind of background will be able to find something in this film of themselves, but also sympathize with these teenagers and what they're going through, because obviously it's such a universal thing that we forget about.
Our real hope was to connect with the peer group of our protagonists, that hopefully that audience would find this film. But also we showed it to our mother and weren't really sure that this would be for her. And she came away from it saying, I loved it. And we were surprised. And we said, why? And she said, well, I was a teenager going through my own shit once too. Like, yeah, okay. We can all connect with this in some way, maybe in different ways. There are kids younger than these protagonists who are watching it and saying, well, I want to do something like that. We all find our own ways into it and our own emotion, with it.
So my final question is the role of music in this film, because we see these teenagers playing music from all kinds of time periods, and it kind of makes the film feel ever present, even though they interact with these different time periods.
All the music except for the final song is dictated and played in the moment by the kids. And yeah, the word ever present, I think, is right on. It's like, because they've grown up with the internet, like they have access to everything all the time. And so we were really surprised, like through the casting process, like we would be driving around with them and they would play something that we had grown up with, and we'd be like, why the hell do you know this? And they'd be like, why do you know this? Like, well, I should know this.
That was a real generational epiphany for us, because when we were growing up, there would have been an oldies station, right? You're already putting things in boxes. Like, this is dusty music, and things that were old were new to this group of people, and it made us see things in a different way. And it was also really cool to have that, like melange of cultural experiences being in one container. Like they were myriad, they were sort of unstuck. And yeah, it made for interesting conversations with us. We were pretty surprised at it.
Well, Bill and Turner, I just want to say thank you very much for speaking with me. I think Gasoline Rainbow is a really beautiful film and something quite remarkable you've been able to achieve in making this.
Thank you.
That
so
was a
much.
great conversation, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
If you enjoyed that conversation with the Ross brothers, I'm sure you'll be eager to go and watch Gasoline Rainbow on the big screen, which you can do at Lab 111 on June 26th. You can find links to tickets in the episode description. Let us know what you thought about our conversation with the Ross brothers and the film Gasoline Rainbow. You can write to us at celebratingcinema@lab111.nl. Otherwise, you can check out our other episodes. Our latest episode is on the art of acting, which ties nicely to this conversation and how the Ross brothers used non-actors to tell this particular story. You can also check out our conversations with other directors, including Bertrand Bonello, director of The Beast, and Balogi, director of Augur. Please make sure to leave a review and share with friends. It really helps more people find us. We love what we do, and I'm sure more people will too. So please help them find us. Make sure to follow us at Lab111 on Instagram. This was a Lab 111 production, produced and edited by myself, Elliot Bloom. Music from Hugo Emazao and artwork by Studio FFF.